Hey everybody, welcome back to X's for Show, your premier media response show, and we're responding to some premier media today. That's for dang sure. You can check the show out at X's for Show. You can check me out playing Epic Mickey at Nico Action, NICOACTION.
You can check me out playing Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom at TK Elemental.
And you can find me watching these handsome gentlemen play those games at Kevo Really. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment so we know what you want us to cover in the future. But we have an exciting round of gaming for you today.
And I just want to say that, like, everybody here is, like, a deep fan of what we're gaming about, right? So, like, when I say that I was a big fan of the original Epic Mickey, here's my original Epic Mickey's collector's guide. Here's my original Epic Mickey alternate Wiimote accessory that allowed you to feel like you actually were Mickey.
I love it. I've had that hanging for a while.
I'm really excited because we're talking about two of, I think, Nintendo's ballsiest obvious moves ever. Number one, remastering Epic Mickey. And number two, finally giving Zelda a goddamn game. The fact that Captain Marvel got a movie before Zelda got a game is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I never get past just the memes of I love Legend of Zelda. He's my favorite guy when pointing to Link. This is one of those things that, like, it happens in comics so often where we're like, Betsy Braddock was an Asian woman for 30 years, and now we're so enjoying this era where she's Captain Britain and Kanan is Psylocke. But it took us 30 years to get there, and it's like kind of embarrassing as a fan of the property to be like, yeah, we just did this weird Orientalism for 30 years, and we all lamented it, but just kept going because we had nothing to do. And similarly, it's just like every game is called Legend of Zelda, and the best that we got, I would say, is that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom really centered Zelda in the story and showed how powerful she was as a woman and as a character and as a force. I think a lot of games always allude to that. So, even that was not as impressive. But here we are all these years later, and finally one of the Legends of Zelda is actually a Legend of Zelda.
Well, and it's so funny because when you're talking about that, I actually think that ties into kind of like the fact that it took Epic Mickey so long, because you're not just talking about Mickey, you're talking about the corporate icon for the company, and to the point where, like, that's the whole point of the game. Now, I know you're going in kind of like blind on Epic Mickey, like you don't know like really anything. I took a little time, played a little bit of Echoes of Wisdom, so like I've got some idea what's going on there. So it'll be really interesting to get your reaction to what Epic Mickey is, considering the cultural discussion that you're putting on the table in the first place is people mistake Link for Zelda by popularity of property name.
And it's something that's always been really fascinating because I believe it has remained a standard that while the Walt Disney Corporation is a more recognizable corporation, Mario is more recognizable as a character property than Mickey is. And I've always found it fascinating that Disney never decided to push on that competition. They've always let Mickey be Mickey. In recent years, I think they have found, and like recent years, even going all the way back to the Wii with the original Epic Mickey. But in recent years, I think they've found very positive partners for including a lot of the Disney crew in games and making that a viable option. What I'm pointing to, of course, is Illusion Island, just a beautiful game that uses Mickey, Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy. But that's not like a Nintendo AAA first name property. It was an independent studio. The art style was unique. And they've never pushed hard on making Mickey their Mario that would sell games the way Mario sells games. And yet they have found a few strategic uses in the last few years in which he can really be a flagship for epic games, for really fantastic games, and I find that very exciting.
And part of it has to do with the foundational identity of what a character is. When you talk about Mario, the foundational identity is you are playing through him. When you talk about Mickey, the foundational identity is you are watching him live. So one of the difficulties you have is everybody who plays a Mario game is the plumber, but everybody who watches a Mickey cartoon is not the mouse. And there's an extent to which we identify with human characters a little bit better. So Mario has that edge, but simultaneously, for all the argument I'm making, then why doesn't Link have a greater advantage? Because I think a lot of people see Link and also go, oh my God, I love Lord of the Rings. And so like, I think there's also a different disconnect. And just to kind of kick the things into kind of like the games themselves, one of the things that I think is really interesting is both games we are discussing are going to have Orlando theme park presences in the very near future, if not already. And so one of the things that leads us to discussing is the reality of these games are experiential by virtue of you will be able to experience facsimiles of what these games offer.
And from two different perspectives, in the case of Epic Mickey, it's kind of going around the track like a third time, because of course you have Mickey the character, then you have Disney World in which you experience, Disneyland in which you experience a lot of Mickey, and then we develop video games around this character, and now we are developing pieces of the theme park based on the video games, based on the character that you see in the theme park. Where Zelda, this is really going to be their first go round, going from on screen to something a little more experiential.
This ain't no disco. So one of the things that I also think is really prevalent when you're discussing this is Mickey's level of success in video games is null. And while I certainly want to celebrate the quality, the success, and the legend of what the the legend of what the Zelda franchise offers to the Nintendo company, Zelda is actually not a Mario seller. No. Zelda is not a GTA seller. Like it is the worst selling of the big boys. And like that's Pikmin. That's Pikmin forever.
I mean, of Nintendo's flagship title, it is definitely not the worst. But it's definitely not the best. And it's a weird thing. Platforming, we decided really early on that was the lingua franca of gaming. That was going to be the soccer / what everybody else calls football of gaming. No matter what country you are in where video games are a thing, platforming and platformer games are going to be a pretty recognizable, easy standard. And Zelda is just decidedly not that. And Mario always has been.
And I think that's where Epic Mickey is sort of struggling. Like one of the, and I hate to bring it up because I didn't give Kebo any art for it, and I'm not trying to fuck with him. I'm getting a lot of ads for Disney Pixel RPG.
Yeah.
And I hate it because like I don't want a new Final Fantasy game anymore. I don't want an old Final Fantasy game remade. I want a new old Final Fantasy game. And this generation of games that all seek to be that, like Disney Pixel RPG, feel really like they might be what I want, but at the same time, I hate being gotcha'd.
Well, and we have a whole other thing with Disney, which is Kingdom Hearts, which is, I mean, that ultimately, that's the
there's
thing.
an Oblivion on my wall.
I know. I know. I'm not telling. I'm not.
I mean, the audience. Like, there's an Oblivion on my wall. There is no human being who spends more time thinking about Keyblades than me.
Right. It's a weird thing where you would think that a Mickey platformer would be like in the years since video game systems have been coming out and Disney has been putting properties forth for them, you would think that a particular Mickey platformer would at some point just have flattened the competition for any generation. Take your pick. PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, Nintendo 60, somewhere in there, the combination of Mickey Mouse, one of the most recognizable characters in all of characterdom, and platforming, again, the most recognizable form of video game, the one that we all kind of can figure out immediately. You would think those two would go together and that would be the thing. And we would all know that one Mickey game that just everybody played because it's Disney and it's platforming. Instead, it is broadly Disney and turn-based RPGs, but everybody knows Kingdom Hearts. That is Disney's flag in the gaming space. And it's a really weird one because, of course, it's in collaboration with Square Enix. Not really the most... If you separated the companies and never mentioned Kingdom Hearts, you would not necessarily put them together. You would not think to put them together. I think you would believe, if you saw everything on paper, that Disney and Nintendo ought to really be able to fuse their sort of creative directions. It's so wild to me how huge Kingdom Hearts is and what a huge part of a lot of people's Disney experience it is. And I find it particularly interesting because Epic Mickey does in a lot of ways feel like it is nodding towards the kind of darker aspects of Kingdom Hearts that made it so successful as a gaming franchise.
And like, I don't want to put a nerd big on blast, but one of my friends is a very, very big buff go-go boy. And I'm like, we're talking and like, yeah, he's so big. And like, the minute I'm like, by the way, and Kingdom Hearts, he's like, Keyblades! And so like, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter who you are, you automatically kind of have this, I guess, romanticized relationship with some part of Kingdom Hearts, whether it's the multiversal experience, the idea of being Mickey, being part of this adventure, or I literally grew up obsessed with keys. Like, I have a collection of keys from like all over the world. One of the coolest things I have is, famously hot older boyfriend got me an 1800s railway key from an old rail track. Like, I love keys. And having a weapon be a key is so cool. And when I told said giant muscle go-go boy about Epic Mickey, his response was, wait, the Keyblade this entire game is a paintbrush? And I'm like, no, it's not a Kingdom Hearts game. And he was like, then why? And so like, I understand that part of what this game actually faced was it just isn't Kingdom Hearts. And, in a generation where if you say to people, oh, it's a Final Fantasy game, and they go, oh, okay, is it 7, 8, 9, or 10? No. Well, fuck you. And like, that's kind of like, I feel how Mickey seems to have fared in video games. If it's not Kingdom Hearts, the answer seems to be a little bit fuck you. And one of the things that I am very positive about is the potentiality that maybe this game, this reiteration, this repackaging of, as Kevo is showing, this unbelievable trailer for Epic Mickey Rebrushed. Really, truly, it's very exciting. Now, TK, you are a consummate gamer. You are a wise human man. And so you know literally nothing about this game? Try for me again because,
Yep, let's go with basically nothing.
Oh, that's the whole reply. Okay. So
I can go longer, but no, I mean,
please, what you do know, because like I would love to hear the external understanding of this show.
Yeah, I mean, so for one thing, this is intentional. This is not me, slacking on the job. I do intend to play this game, and I've been intending to play this game for well over a decade now because I already did this cycle of not watching any gameplay or trailers because I was going to play this when it came out for the Wii. And then life happened, adulthood continued to creep in, and I never got to it. Lost my Wii. Here we go. And then, this announcement came, and I feel like now's as good a time as any to really point out that I am fascinated by where this is coming in the life cycle of the Switch, particularly as it pertains to this idea that Epic Mickey actually might be able to become something. The fact that it has been completely redone and is one of I was telling Nico, I went to pick up Echoes of Wisdom from the store thinking this is probably my last Switch game before the Switch 2 comes out. But in fact, Epic Mickey and Princess Peach are probably going to be my last 2 Switch games. But the point is, this system is very quickly coming to its end. And so to release such a big flagship game for it at the end of its life shows so much confidence in the game, in the system, in the marriage of these two things that it does lead me to a lot of excitement. Now, as far as gameplay goes, I have seen a little bit. I know that this is sort of, in a lot of ways, like of the Zelda style, where it is, I know for Epic Mickey, it's much more kind of, as pertains to Disney World itself and to like various sections of the park, as it were. But it does have that feel of the old Zelda games where it's not open world. You are not freely roaming, as became popular with Skyrim soon after this, to the point that Zelda started to emulate that style. It has more in common with, you know, a game like Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, where you have to unlock the pieces of the map where you are put first to then go on to the next piece of the map. And in this case, that is related to the park.
And for me, part of what's so exciting when you're talking about Epic Mickey is you're talking about a game that is such a labor of love. You know, Warren Spector, subject of the Jinx, is a major nerd. And so when you're looking at this map, Kevo, if you would just leave this incredible image up for a moment and drop the banner, this actually represents like Walt Disney World. This literally looks just like a map of Walt Disney World. And the entire game is based around the idea that early in his childhood, Mickey was Yen Sid's, the sorcerer from A Sorcerer's Apprentice, his favorite baby, and he was like the real world child. And there was a parallel, entirely ink-based world where Yen Sid was running this sort of like magical experiment of a fictional world. And one day, wanting to be a sorcerer, just like when he put on the hat, Mickey went into the office and knocked over a blot, like an ink blot, and it created the Phantom Blot, which is like an old famous Disney villain. And he ravaged this world. In this world was the original mascot for Disney World, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, Oswald was created before Mickey and was the company's bread and butter after the Alice cartoons. But Oswald was lost in a rights dispute and would be reachieved in like 2004. And this was the first major thing. I have the official Oswald ears, big fan of the character, but I do recognize that when you're a big fan of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, that's kind of like the same thing as being a big fan of Tasha Yar. Fuck yourself. There's like 2 minutes to be a fan of. You can calm down with that shit. But I'm a huge fan of Oswald, so I should calm down and fuck myself. You know what I mean? So the plot of this game is Mickey is then, as an adult, forced to face and reckon with the world he's destroyed and what it means to become responsible for a franchise, kind of. A lot of the earliest concept art was way grittier, way more hardcore. It was night and day. And then the actual game comes out, and like one of the things they had promised us early on was, because you have 2 methods, right? Now this shows blue because that's paint, and paint saves the universe. If you use paint on a bad guy, it turns them into a good guy. But if you use green, which is thinner, paint thinners them out of existence and you kill people. And originally, we were told that whether you used more ink or thinner would affect your Mickey. And Mickeys that use predominantly thinner would become sinister looking, and Mickeys that use predominantly paint would become adorable looking. ultimately it just like if you use more paint, you get more paint energy. If you use more thinner, you get more thinner energy. But ultimately, you can buy more of the other once you have the first one. So it doesn't really make a difference.
They got scared.
Because that's the difference between Mario and Mickey. Like, what can you do with Mario? He's never actually had a story before the Mario movie. The story is go do thing. It's just a quest. Even if it's 10 quests, it's just a quest. But Mickey rules a kingdom filled with characters. If Mario ruled a Nintendo kingdom filled with Link, filled with even Sonic, having Metroid and the entire Samus universe in one corner, in that corner is Kirby, then Mario would have the same kind of responsibility that Mickey does, and it would immediately inhibit the quality of the character. But because Mickey is responsible, as Kevo has up here, I mean, my favorite fictional character of all time, Dumbo, is like right there. And this is a sinister version of a character that so many of us identify as the most innocent thing in the world.
And it's really interesting because I think of another. Oh my God, Kevo! I'm so glad you're bringing these. Just these are horrifying in the best.
Oh, they're all
possible
from
way.
him.
Oh, I left out the most horrifying. I left out the ones that made me uncomfortable. The ones
Fair.
that look like Nazi experiments, I just left out.
Right. This reminds me a lot of Fable 2, which was one of the most popular games for the Xbox 360. Sort of a failed franchise ultimately, but I think at Fable 2 we all really thought it was going to be huge, and that was the central component of Fable's overarching gameplay, which is you could choose to be good or you could choose to be evil, and that would be a lot of decision tree things where like you would get a quest, you would go through it at the end, and the thing would be, so now do you save the guy and bring him to the town prison where he will be tried and put in jail, or do you kill him? And if you bring him to the town prison, you get upstanding energy, and if you kill him you get evil energy, and as you get eviler your skin starts to crack and leak light. People are afraid of you, and it's even the kind of thing where you can, in the world map, like in you would do in GTA and other places, you can see a crime going on and you can stop it, or you can actually see places where you can do crime and then again get eviler. And at the end, your character is either just looking great, decked out in their robes, super powerful, and you can choose to, in the last moments of the game, make a good person decision or make a really terrible person decision. And you wind up with this character that is wrecked or gorgeous, but essentially you kind of just played the same game no matter. You have a little bit of fun in the middle, but the decision tree is not branching in such widely different directions that like the idea of playing the game twice isn't actually that satisfying. You don't get that much out of the evil ending versus the good ending. We saw this with BioShock as well, where you could either kill the little sisters and get extra Adam, or you could save them and get a little bit less, but ultimately that didn't super affect the outcome of the final bits of the game. You basically, regardless of how much Adam you had enough to get all the power-ups and get to the end. And then you saw one of two different endings, which were very similar, and also very similar to kind of very easy to achieve the other one once you had seen the first. Of course, we're also in the time of YouTube, so you can view that video very quickly. But it's really fascinating to... Sorry, go ahead.
No, just, yeah, exactly.
It's really fascinating to me that Disney is exactly producing this game in exactly the time period where you might do exactly as you've said, and either, have Mickey get more grotesque as he uses the paint thinner, or more beautiful as he uses the paint. But maybe they decided they didn't want their flagship character to get that ugly depiction, and they didn't want to have their world depicted in that disturbing of a way. So they found a healthy compromise that I think ultimately, as I sort of reflect on the games of that era and what worked and what didn't, I think maybe it was really the right decision for Disney.
And I think that's even part of what wound up happening. There wasn't necessarily hesitance to do what Epic Mickey was offering, but like when you take a look at this image, anybody who's ever been out to Disneyland recognizes that in Disneyland they make Small World just as important as the castle. It is literally a projection. It is a physical landscape. And if you see the fireworks show at the castle, there is something going on Small World to handle the overflow. So like in Disneyland, this giant visage of Small World is a humongous part of the park's existence, and turning it into a villain that Mickey has to fight, who has like hands that smash him. You know, you're talking about an era where in 1994, 1995, who I think technically somehow became the Led Zeppelin of our generation, no doubt, they released Tragic Kingdom, and the lyrics to Tragic Kingdom are literally an assassination of Disneyland. Like, line by line, once there was a magical place, but over time it was lost. Price increased the cost. They pay homage to a king whose dreams are buried in their minds. His tears are frozen stiff. Icicles drip from his eyes because supposedly Disney was put in cryogenic stasis. Welcome to the Tragic Kingdom. Cornfields of popcorn have yet to spring open. Like talking about how the park all smells like popcorn. And they're midgets that disguise themselves as tiny little dwarves, referring to the fact that the park often employed little people to play smaller characters. So we're talking about a generation who were completely disillusioned with Disney. And their favorite thing is to come to it with, well, did you know people used to have to share underwear? No, they didn't, idiot. What do you got?
Also,
I had something though.
As soon had we but known what Gwen Stefani would become, we might have said back then, my dearest kettle, how dare you call that? Or my dearest pot, how dare you call that kettle black? Please go, kettle.
To jump on what you were saying though about the Disney park stuff, that's why I was trying to point this out. The fact that this is so reflective of the partner statue that is in every park, where it's Walt holding hands with Mickey. Here instead it's Oswald. You have obviously the Dumbo spinner is very on the nose, but even this isn't necessarily the most obvious Adventureland, but it's evocative of it. There's so many things of it in here.
And so this game was built on a generation of 40-year-old men who love to click YouTube videos that say the real truth that you never knew. And like, I believe in the supernatural. I believe in magic. I believe in greater beings and other levels of existence. But when Kevo and I watch my favorite thing in the entire world, creepy YouTube videos, my favorite thing to say out loud is, yep, of course, you guys have found ghosts. You're the one. And
this is it. This is the video.
Yeah, it's not because I don't believe in ghosts, but it's I don't believe you're the one who found the ghosts. And the fact that this game was made by a generation of men who are all like, LOL, I bet this is the one that tells me for real that Walt Disney hated all Jewish people. Like, there is something where the game was built on a promise of salacious disease that just isn't always there. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of ugly dark about the Disney company, and we should absolutely talk about the horrible things that the company did. But sometimes when you focus on all the horrible things that the Walt Disney Company did, you sort of let the Warner Brothers Company get away with just as horrible things because you want to pick on one person. I am never saying don't pick on Walt Disney and the Disney Company the most. I'm saying pick on everybody equally for their sins. And because people have had eyes on Disney for so long, you have let so many sins go by. And I've never in my life seen somebody be like, I want Bugs Bunny, the Destroyer Man, Killer Bot, but everybody wants Mickey Mouse to be that. And I think that's part of why this game had to pull back, because you couldn't give in to the edgelords.
And that's really fascinating because, listen, it has already been said, none of this is shilling for the corporate structure of the Disney company. But the fact of the matter is, when a company is as large as Disney, or as large as Warner Brothers, and even, I mean, size doesn't really matter. The point is, when you're looking at the structure, it's similar to a country. We all can be very critical of the governments of nations and the policies and the structure put forth that binds us all and is horrible and genocidal in a lot of cases. And we can be critical of countries, but we don't then point at individual citizens and go, it's all your responsibility. And for instance, therefore your art is bad. And, you know, one thing, knowing two people who have worked for and loved Disney and done art for Disney, like have been employed by Disney and performed, you know, that's love that you have for this thing, in spite of the problems with the corporate structure. And so to take it all the way back, I think there is always this desire to be critical and really corruptive and hurtful of Disney properties because of the frustration with the very top and with a lot of the foundational ideas behind the company. Where a lot of these works are being created is in the minds of what are essentially citizens, are essentially people that have no part of creating that structure, but live within it to express themselves and play in a thing that they love.
I, for a while now, have been using this metaphor of, I feel like the Disney company is like the Federation and the Disney workers are like Starfleet. And both of those entities are essentially and ostensibly trying to do good. And yet we constantly find out there is something shady going on. Obviously, because humanity is flawed and because we aren't in the fictional Star Trek universe. And so we have people, obviously, who are even more flawed. But the people who work for these things, especially frontline workers, like you're saying, people who are making this art, people who work in the parks, people who are creating things, you know, those artists, most of them are trying to make good art. They're doing this out of love. And it's just across all media reaction that there's so many people being like, chills. But like, no, these are artists that love this, and that's why they're making it.
And kind of part two of that thought is a lot of this stuff doesn't get made without the participation of like Imagineers and people at levels of creativity at Disney, where you really do have to think not just outside the box, but you got to be fucking galaxy brained with it. You got to really get expansive. And I would not be surprised, to Nico's point, if there were really people that were thinking about the looming trademark situation and the fact that we, within the lifetime of this game and of game development, would see the beginning of Disney's IP leak into the public domain, as we have seen with Winnie the Pooh. And this is something that this gang, we were all talking about in chat a while back, which is just like, you know, it is whatever it is. I think the public domain is a fantastic thing, and it's good that we have access to it and that people be allowed to take classic works and remix them and work with them. None of us, I think, are the least bit compelled by any of the Pooh horror ideas, like the games, the films, the art, none of it.
I've long said that I think like the greatest story ever would be Pooh Noir, where Winnie the Pooh is a hardened, like big, sexy bear detective, and Piglet is a damsel in distress who wanders into the room. And I mean, Pooh would then fuck the shit out of a hot, sexy Piglet boy. But like, I think it's a gay noir. I don't see where everybody sees horror. And the fact that they automatically go to horror and not like sexy gay noir, for me, means they're not looking for the salacious in the story. They're just looking to tell a salacious story.
My favorite part of that is Christopher Robin is the dame that he lost that made him grizzled. Like, yeah, there's so many things. Yeah. Tigger is on drugs and lives down the hall, and like it's not
methy.
It's not horrifically edgy, but it's that noir. It's that more hard-boiled, because we're not opposed to things like that, like Power / Rangers. I wouldn't want a full movie of that, but I thought it was cool for a short.
Yeah. And I just think, I really understand the reticence to facilitate that kind of thinking around one of your central IPs, because people are going to go there no matter what. Again, like, especially if you already know that this stuff is going to get into the public domain. And frankly, even if it's not, because fair use covers a lot of remixing and depictions. But, people will already immediately go to, how can we make this the darkest, gritty, how can we test what we think are the lines and boundaries of this property? So that idea doesn't become super sexy when it's official. When the company themselves can make it into horror, in and of itself, not sold. Because again, some guy on the internet is already going to tell me that he paid an AI $750 to remake a Serbian film, but it's Mickey and Minnie instead of, the actors. And wow, that's so fucked up.
It's actually a Sorbayan film, and it's actually just all about a giant ice cream cone.
Yeah, and a little baby ice cream. Never mind. Anyway, we can all go dark with it. How do you really get creative and interesting outside of that? How do you delve into the darkness, but not make it just an overwhelming tub of sugary sweet darkness for everybody to gorge themselves on? I do think aesthetically and in terms of ideas, that really the restraint that was shown in making this game and not going as dark as they could have sort of speaks to a wisdom in not giving people what they think they have to have.
And I think someplace that is really well reflected still in Disney's IP control ideas is in Agatha All Along. One of the things that has been the greatest emotional apex for me in Agatha All Along has been the iterations of the Witch's Road, and that's built in right away from the first episode, where they say one of the characters' mother is responsible for the most successful version of the song. So we've had 3 versions of the Witch's Road in like 4 episodes. It's amazing. We've had the orchestral, the 2 different sung versions. One was a madrigal, one was like a 70s pop number. And when you do a 70s pop number, I mean, like, I made a joke earlier about Zeppelin, but like, if you want to write either an Ashanti or a Zeppelin song, you just say the word baby 17 times over a riff. And like, that's all you have to do. And I feel like they could have gone so far into the realm of this is just fucking stupid with like doing like a 70s song. They basically could have done the Fleetwood Mac version of Hang On Sloopy, but they didn't, right? And I feel like that's where Epic Mickey took the time to be considered, and worked to create a story that was likable and believable. Your job is to either destroy those creatures or make them love being a part of this world. The little Oswald rabbits, no matter what, they're going to like rabbit you. So your job is just to round them up, collect them, help Oswald out. Really, it is about Mickey going through a meta version of what if all of Disney World was turned into Casino Night Zone. And it's a fascinating experiment. At times, it becomes redundant. It becomes boring. They don't always have the best instructions. And yet at other times, the challenges are too simple. It's turn 3 wheels, which is use the spin command B 4 times. Like, that's it. You're done. And like, hitting a 1 button 12 times should not complete quests. But all in all, I've just really felt like this was a really great opportunity to give a really incredible game that, Kevo, thank you so much for that image for one moment. If you would go back one screen. The unbelievable platform, modern style 3D levels that are clearly, children of Mario 64 give way to interactive 2D levels that are designed to look like classic rubber hose cartoons. And they give this unbelievable break from the gameplay. There are unlockables, there are collectibles, and there's a new game plus mode. The only thing I like more than a smiling bottom is a new game plus mode. So this is my kink. This is absolutely.
How close are you to finishing your?
My bottom? No. I
Pretty close.
am dangerously close. It is safe word levels. I was trying to get as much done as I could, but I really did want to have an understanding of Echoes of Wisdom. I've had the opportunity to talk with former series contributor Kyle a little bit, and he was speaking so highly about Echoes of Wisdom. You were speaking so highly of Echoes of Wisdom. I just really wanted to show Echoes of Wisdom and take a minute to experience the game. Oh, hey, Peak
Hello
Jonah.
there.
So, at the end of the day, though, I think one of the things that has me the most excited about Epic Mickey.
Sorry, real quick. Are you going to go right into New Game Plus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a game player. Like,
Yeah.
I'm terrible because I think that if you finish a game, that's a great opportunity to restart the game. I think when you get to the end of Velvet Rope and you are reminded that you can't be stopped, you should immediately go back and have a special need. It is like a cycle that should occur. When I finish a game that has a New Game Plus, I just want to dive into it. Like, I just want to experience what it's like to play this game a different way, because it's not just playing it a second time. It's playing it with the advent of knowledge, with the advantage of having all of these special abilities, of all of these unlockables, and what couldn't you get that now you can get? You know, I think one of the best worst games of all time, period, is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Yes, it's terrible. Deal with it. But I'm a guy who loves making card decks. So for me, it's amazing. And the fact that as soon as you beat it, you play it in reverse, but you play it with Riku, that's amazing. Though, I don't know. Like, I'm like, it's so funny because I'm the world's softest Dom, I guess, because like, no, I'm Sora. I've been having these weird dreams lately. So when people were like, no, I'm Riku, I'm the big one. I'm like, no, I'm the big one, but I'm the central character. Why would you ever not want to be the main character? Why would you? That doesn't. Who wants to be Sailor V? Like, I don't ever understand anybody who's like, I want to be Oswald. I'm like, oh, so I guess you have low self-esteem.
I mean, the best way I can really put it, especially for this sphere of things, I don't believe that anybody should want to be Noctis over Gladio.
Do those people exist?
People who want.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but evidently they do, because Peak Jonah thinks he's Sailor V.
Yeah. I would any day now rather be Gladio than Noctis.
So I'm mentally hilarious, and I don't understand why anybody wouldn't just want to be Yuna.
I mean, well, Yuna is another great example.
Titus is obviously the secondary character in that story to Yuna. It's the way that Frasier is the secondary character to Niles. You can watch the whole show thinking that the whole show is actually Frasier's, but it's really a Frasier prequel on a Niles show. And
that never comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
But
no,
here's the thing.
It starts in season 8 after he stops being creepy on Daphne. That's what the show is.
You pick some great examples for having your cake and eating it too, because if you just took Final Fantasy X in a vacuum and said, I'm Yuna, somebody would look at you and go, oh, so you don't want to be the main character, you want to be the coolest character. And you, Nico, would go, no, of course I want to be the main character. Yuna gets a whole second game that's about her, and they have dress spheres.
I also just want to point out that literally the main crux of that game is Titus has to shout, "It's my story!" over and over again to ensure that he is the main character, even though he is the protagonist.
Yes,
it is not it's one of those things where like, not to do that thing, but like Astonishing X-Men, I win this time. Astonishing X-Men is actually all about Jean, even though she never appears. It's literally about her beginning to end for 25 issues, and the foot-obsessed creator has said so. And so like, I think, you know, that at the end of the day, Final Fantasy X is about Yuna, the same way so many of the Zelda games are about Zelda, even though Link is the character that's oriented around. And like, just to pull it back to Epic Mickey for a second, I think when you go to the Disney parks, you are the main character, no matter what the experience is oriented around, because you're living it. And I think that is part of where video games have always failed Mickey. They make you have to be Mickey to be the main character to be Mickey, or he's supporting. But the implied other is experiential, not dictated by dialogue.
I get what you're saying. I do want to make sure that we put out there that wanting to be Waka, Lulu, or Gladio, really good choices.
Oh, no. If you want to be Waka or Lulu, you have described my two perfect sexual partners. Also, you have described that couple at the bar.
Yeah. That is the deepest bisexual, but also possibly they bombed the bar.
Yes!
Also, there's possibly a bomb in the bar. They would like to take you home, and we should leave now because the bomb is going to go off. Couple.
I mean, literally, the hottest couple in all of comic books ever. Not comic, I mean, of all video games ever.
Yes.
Ever.
We noticed you across the Blitz court.
That reference.
that's right.
Geez. Okay. Well, so what I want to say then is I genuinely love this remake. Just to dive into the gameplay a little bit. The ease of access, the quality of life improvements are extraordinary. I am somebody who would really rather use my Nintendo Classic controller, like a legitimate Nintendo controller, than play on my Switch for some of those classic games, but it's not an option. The opposite exists here. I hate Wiimotes more than anything. And it's not the action. It's not like a funny joke, but like, I have guitar brain, and like, so I finger things. I don't arm things. I have piano brain, so I finger things. I don't arm things. And
Well, and you have like keyboard brain too. That's these things aren't conducive to that for a game like this, especially. Like, I get it for the sports and some stuff, but not this.
And I just want to say, I was 302 pounds, and the thing that got me down to 165 was Wii Fit. Like, Wii Fit literally saved my life. I have a heart condition that I was born with, and I was reaching a weight where my doctors were like, you're going to live to 30. Good luck. And Wii Fit literally saved my life. And if I hadn't lost all that weight from Wii Fit, I never would have gotten into bodybuilding. I never would have started building muscle, and I would never have been as healthy as I've become. So, like, I'm not necessarily knocking all of the elements of the physicality of the Wii, but gaming, no. If you had to like make the sign of the cross to activate your materia every time, Final Fantasy VII would not have been a hit. And at the same time, every time you want to use your paint, they have to go, nah! Like, hot older boyfriend makes fun of me all the time because when I use I bought a new car, I have mentioned. And whenever I go to use the remote starter, I always go, beep, 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 beep. And he's like, don't gesture at it. Just press the button. And I'm like, no, you have to move your arm at the same time.
Or it doesn't go.
Didn't work for me. The Wiimote just required too much, like, just do it. Don't also do it. That it made the game unfun. And not having to be good at brain surgery, it turns out to make a game a whole lot more fun.
By the way, different experience if you are playing on a standard Switch, not a Switch Lite, or on the PlayStation.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay.
I forgot when we were talking about it because I was like, well, did they? Because I was really shocked by that, about the lack of motion controls. Yeah, the motion controls are still there, which has been one of the MOs of the Switch going back to, for me, the first really big one was Okami, because I quit Okami for the Wii because the original Wiimote would often fail users who were trying. Did you play Okami?
No.
Okay. There's the same thing as all these games. The Wiimote is letting you paint and brush. And there was a thing where you had to circle some cherry blossoms on a tree, and the original Wiimote couldn't do it. And apparently got better with Motion Plus, but by then I was angry at the game and never went back to it. And then it was a really early remake for the Switch, which had all the same motion controls and was set to go. And then I distinctly remember, because Okami was out around the same time as Skyward Sword, immediately I was like, oh, so they could finally remake Skyward Sword. And it really took over 3 years from Okami coming out for Switch for Skyward Sword to come out for Switch. So there was this group of Wii games that like really loved the motion controls, even though I think for a lot of users, for as cool as we all may have thought it really also was like a huge inconvenience and didn't always work. And to this day, I don't know that anybody has ever proven that it's worth the trouble. I always think about one of my favorite Nintendo games, ARMS, which you can play with motion control or with standard controls. I don't know. I don't know if we're there.
And that's even, I think, a little bit where a lot of the greatest games of all time get weighed down by what they're bound by.
Yeah.
When we think about some of the best features of, I don't know, classic Pokemon games, just to talk about the sexiest boy in the entire universe to ever live, Peak Jonah, who is just hanging out in our chat like it's no big deal.
We love you, JoJo.
I don't know anybody who is a Pokemaster the way he is, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, but I don't want to know you. I have mine, thank you. And so as you know, I'm hyping up a little too much. One of the things we love to do is we love to go back and we love to watch videos of Poke experiences that can no longer be achieved, characters that are no longer available to interact with, Pokemon or versions of Pokemon that are no longer available. And often it's something like a Sandshrew that knows surf. Like, it's something absurd that you don't really need, and it was only available through this one thing for 3 days for a Japanese holiday that also celebrated, it also happened to come in contact with like a Pokemon anniversary, so they made it a celebration of the two things. And so there are so many great elements of gameplay that are lost like that, like the like Move With Me Pikachu or whatever it was, like the little Tamagotchi Shake Me Pikachu. And it's interesting because the only things about Epic Mickey that I'm sad about that are gone are the unloved sequel. There was an Epic Mickey sequel that was The Power of Two, and then there was a DS counterpart, and the DS counterpart long lost to time. Epic Mickey 2 kind of lost to time, and it's funny because I'm having a really romantic moment right now. I am thinking about running around the Magic Kingdom playing sorcerers, running up and down Main Street, experiencing what it was like to feel like Mickey in this moment and to cast magic in the parks and everybody else having the same card so they can cast the magic too. So you're not in this weird bubble where you're basically like living a fantasy world. Epic Mickey is an incredible achievement in storytelling, because what it seeks to do is it seeks to force you to confront the things you love about what you love. And it can only come from many years of something brilliant. I'm lucky enough to create a comic book that I get to write with these gentlemen here, Kid Riot. And one of the things that I love about Kid Riot are the things I see for its future. But I recognize that so much of the advent and the advantages of the future come from having lived in the world for a really long time. Epic Mickey exists because it's successful at pulling at the threads of what came before it. TK, the other day on a broadcast, you really incredibly said that part of what you understand so well about Batman are the other people you've traced the career of who have intersected with Batman, like a Grant Morrison, for instance. So your references include, Zur-En-Arrh a little bit more than they would include Frieza's wife's saga that played out in Detective Comics by Realm V in the last couple of months. But that doesn't make your fandom wrong. It means your fandom came to this through these avenues. I think Epic Mickey is a treat for anyone who's loved one of the 8 avenues that intersect with it. Whether you are a rubber hose Cuphead, fuck you, Cuphead. For the love of God, I will never hate a video game. I will never, for my entire life, hate a video game the way I hate Cuphead. I will, for my entire life, never be that angry at an inanimate object.
You mad? Get better.
I haven't touched it in 4 years.
Log off this broadcast and go get better at that game.
I haven't touched it in 4 years. Got so mad.
Yep. I did. I mean, listen, I love it because
so does JoJo. So do I.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I want to be clear. We all love it. The art is so gorgeous. Great music. I think like Nico. Yeah, just incredible. I think like Nico, what makes me hate this game beyond my ability to breathe some days is that I cannot overcome its challenges.
I am terrible at Cuphead in a way that I am terrible at very few things. Yeah. I am better at being a heterosexual black person than I am at Cuphead.
Yeah.
Things I cannot be.
It is very difficult, very beautiful, very frustrating. But I'm so glad it exists in the world. Muted.
Part of why I bring it up is because one of the things that Epic Mickey really benefited from was the very positive sort of ephemeral obsession with rubber hose style, the positive sort of ephemeral obsession with that just out of touch thing that came before it. This new game is really beautiful. It's really stunning. It's really made for people, not just who loved Epic Mickey, but it's made for people who love new ideas. You know, TK, I wouldn't recommend that you play every game I love. I play a lot of video games I never even mentioned to you. I'll occasionally send you screenshots of DC heroes and villains, but I don't say you should go play this very dumb match 3 game. This is a game that, much like Illusion Island, I feel you would love and we would talk about, but we wouldn't talk about our shared love. You as a storyteller, as a man with unique ideas and unique visions for what gameplay could be, you would talk to me about things I've never even noticed about this game. And I feel like your every opinion on it would be just as valid. Kevo, as somebody who doesn't engage with video games, but somebody who thinks that the Disney parks are a map like Joni Mitchell would draw on a napkin in 1973. That's a really funny reference, Court and Spark fans. I feel like you would sink into this game in the same way TK would, and you and I would have the exact same kind of not the same conversation. Mm-hmm. So I would love to know what you both think about this game going forward, having not played it, with me giving it this A-, and, you know, the minus is just because, like, you can't say that your own song is your favorite song of the year. It is. But you can't say that your own song is your favorite song of the year. So I can't give this an A+ because this was literally just made for me in an uncanny way.
I think something that I had long said that I kind of have forgotten is that for me, this is sort of my Kingdom Hearts. I get the love for Kingdom Hearts, but I find all of it way too chaotic and way too much. I love the crossover elements, but as someone who doesn't bring Final Fantasy to the table, I don't really connect as much with that. But I bring Disney parks to the table as a person. As someone who used to work there with you, as someone who's grown up on them and loves them, you know, seeing it used in this way, I find really interesting. And I would love to see this property capitalized on in some form. I don't think that this could be a TV show the way you could definitely get a TV show out of Kingdom Hearts, but I would love like a movie or two based around Epic Mickey. I think that's something that could be pretty cool. I love these concepts, and you know, me not being the biggest gamester, I don't know how well I would take to it, but it's probably one that I would at least give a whirl.
Kevo, that vision for what Epic Mickey is meant to be, something that's accessible despite not having all of the elements, is exactly why TK. I think if you played this, you might come to me and say, is there, you know, content for this? Is there a backstory for this? But at the end of the day, you know, I think the potentiality for the legends of the Disney company exist here in a way that somebody who is so big thought, and I feel so bad that I can't remember the name of the animated series that was Scavenger's Reign, or Arcane, these big idea animated series, some of which are based on video games. We will be covering Arcane season 2, I'm hoping, on this show. Definitely, hey. So I hope we will be covering Arcane season 2. What do you feel about this project, having gotten a chance to talk about it? Because like I've been on the edge of my seat, like a graduate waiting for that graduation cap toss, getting to talk about this with you, knowing you knew so little about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are, in the best way, there's really no surprises. Like, this is when I have two people in my life that love Disney so much, and give me so much kind of inside baseball about Disney, and really sort of understand the values that the artistic side of the company is bringing. Because I'm not talking about the profiteering side. That's just going to exist no matter what. But people who have real knowledge about the creative workings. When I have that and I see a game like this that isn't seeking to, this isn't pulling from a TV property and trying to make a video game out of it. This isn't the video game.
This isn't Epic Bones.
Exactly. Although, how fun that would be, especially if for the game, they were all dogs. So Bones was like, it's all.
When like Dog City was basically Ace Ventura Pet Detective.
Yeah. Like that.
And if there could be, a bonus video of David Borean.
Yeah. We know. More witchcraft, David. Anyway, so no surprises, but continued affirmation of all of the stuff I'm excited about and think is so compelling about Disney artwork. I mean, like, it was a no-brainer for me to grab Illusion Island when it was announced, and we had so much fun with that game. The aesthetics of it, the Metroidvania platforming journey, the David Housden soundtrack, which was that was my into the game. That's how I found out about it, is that I follow David Housden because he has done music for other games that I love. And I was so amazed at how he took the Disney sound aesthetic and put it through his own lenses and instruments and filters and made this incredible soundtrack. So anyway, I have high expectations, and, Epic Mickey, since I knew of this game but wasn't playing it, it has always kind of met those expectations and tickled my interest and my fancy. And that is no different now. I think, Kevo, you made a really good point, which is I do think they could do something with this in terms of something watchable on Disney Plus, something a little bit more. Again, we're not trying to go for edgy adult, but we are trying to say, like, we made something that the adults would enjoy, sort of getting all of the references and getting the retro pastiche ideas that were coming forth. So I don't know. I remain really excited about this. Nothing that was said here put me to a place where I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was like that. I'm out.
It's that sort of like free thinking to be willing to go toward it. I'll be honest. We've done 4 or so video game episodes at this point, and we talked about one where you'd mentioned Crypt of the Necrodancer, and we had talked about it before that, and
I will talk about Crypt of the Necrodancer any chance I get.
That's how I feel about Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memories, because it is a game where you literally have to fight to the beat. Like, It's not just swing your Keyblade. It's you have to dance in the right way to use the Keyblade in the right way.
Yeah. And
when you're talking about games that push your envelope, my favorite game of all time is probably Theatrhythm. Like, I'm a weird, dumb baby, and Final Fantasy music makes me so happy. So when you told me about this opportunity to engage with the Zelda universe in a unique way, and that it was based on a unique game, like, I love the Mercenaries series. Anybody who needs something to replace FFTA, or FFT or FFTA2, you can go check out the Mercenaries series. There's 3 of them. They are brilliant. They're usually on sale, all 3 for $15 on Switch. So just hang in a minute, you'll find it. And for me, part of what it gives me is an opportunity to play this game that I love in a separated way. I know how much you love Crypt of the Necrodancer, and would you just remind me the Zelda game name that matches?
Cadence of Hyrule.
Thank you, Cadence of Hyrule. And so I think a million things about you, and they're all positive and wonderful, but one of the things that I so associate you with is music. So when I discovered that there was a Zelda game that you associated with music because it's music based, that became part of what I defined my understanding of you and your Zelda fandom by, you and music, because you are a person for whom the beat is a humongous part of your ability to engage with the world. So to know that then we were getting a Zelda game that stepped outside of all of the traditional things that I knew you loved about Zelda, the aesthetic quality of the identity of the character, and then stepping outside of the standard idea of the music, because I did listen to the score. This is vastly different. In the background, you guys can hear my Adventurelander mix of the theme of Zelda. I had a great time with this. In the previous track was my Steamboat Willie or Won't He mix of Phantasmic for Epic Mickey. So honestly, more than anything, as a guy who is literally a Billboard chart as a man, hey, what's up? I would love to know how this game sat with you, knowing what you love about the Zelda franchise.
And I do just want to point out, you did the Adventurelander mix of the Legend of Zelda theme, not Zelda's theme, which is a different thing. But yeah, I was immediately very excited about this game. I literally was in a Costco, pushing my cart with my cell phone propped up, watching the Nintendo Direct, texting Nico as it was going when this game was announced. And immediately the excitement of playing as Zelda, kind of nothing else matters at that point. That's all we need to talk about. Again, it's a little bit embarrassing because we are so too late to this. I think probably Majora's Mask should have starred Zelda. That might have been a place at which we're like, okay, it's they made all these games and there's finally a game about Zelda. The fact that we went so much longer, we went basically 30 years more without Zelda getting a game, absolutely insane. But here we are. We got it. And there's our boy AGI Numa.
I love AG. He is one of those members of the Nintendo Super Team who just does not get enough credit for what he does.
Yes.
You got your Hidekis, and you've got all of these famous voices that have so completely Nomura being such a humongous part of the Final Fantasy discussion, and there are so many people, there are so many rock stars, and we just don't get a chance to talk about them because they're these unbelievable Japanese voices who are so rarely translated into English in a way where we get to give them the credit they deserve.
Yes. And in this case, a very different creative team for this Zelda game. But a really worthy one. I mean, I had the distinct privilege of getting to experience Cadence of Hyrule, which it's not very common to get a Zelda game, a Legend of Zelda game that is not a Legend of Zelda game. Before Link's Awakening, Zelda or Link had never jumped. There was never jumping in Zelda, and you had to have a special artifact for Link to be able to jump in that. at a certain point, you know, we had never had motion controls before. This is a game that relies on some very standard things, and it's not super common for the game to deviate outside of that. You know, I think about something like Link's crossbow training, which is essentially just a limited version of like one piece of gameplay from Twilight Princess, but it is technically go.
I was bad at it.
Oh, I was great at it. I had the thing. I got the, yeah. I got myself the little crossbow attached. Come on, this is my life. This is, I love, yeah, exactly. So, and Link's crossbow training, like it's, you know, it's technically a Zelda property. But like even that is a great example of like, it's just sort of singularly a certain type of gameplay from the game. Like it's not really doing anything different. Cadence of Hyrule is based on an entirely different form of gameplay. It is not the same type of like action adventure RPG that any other Zelda game is. And to get to experience that, and to get to experience Danny Baranowski, who, like David Housden, is one of the musical composers I respect the most in video games. The Crypt of the Necrodancer has, to me, top 3 of all time video game soundtracks. And to get to hear that person's reworking of the Zelda classics, I mean, it's, you know, it is in a different way similar to how excited I get whenever you do something like this, Nico. Like I get so excited hearing your interpretation because you are somebody I love, whose artistic career I follow, and I love to see how your mind is going to work on a song that I already know. With you, it's particularly exciting because I actually do know you and I get to talk to you, and I have an interesting perspective on your process. But with somebody like Danny Baranowski, it's just like, I really like the music that he did for Crypt, and I'm amazed at how it translated to Cadence of Hyrule. All that said, this game weirdly, it doesn't, like, compared to something like Cadence of Hyrule, it doesn't feel so crazy. It really feels like pulling together basically everything that came out for Zelda for Switch over the last 7 years and distilling it into one of the most accessible Zelda games ever made, in a way that is not the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me, but is really, it just makes so much sense. It's like, I don't know, it's weird when something, I'll tell you what, it's not a challenging game, and I'm not, but with the exception of the fact that Zelda is the main playable character, there's not like a ton of surprises here. The main surprise is that like it's taken this long for all of this stuff to come together.
It sounds like you're telling me this is an 11 blowjob from a 6. Not where you thought you'd have the best time of your life, but not the best looking, but
You'll take it.
You'll take it. I would love to know how you feel about when we're talking about Zelda. Of course, we're talking about a female character. We're talking about the iterative version of Link that is, of course, diminutive and often treated as secondary. So few people remember even to call her Sheik. She is very regularly, barely breathing. And I am wondering what you feel about the fact that this could have been, like, you know, when we talk about comics, women are drawn so much more beautifully than men. I actually think that by purposefully making this look like a bunch of me's, that they subtracted the sexy from it so that the sexuality couldn't dwarf the game the way that perhaps at times Final Fantasy X-2, which you were kind enough to reference earlier, did affect the quality of Yuna's heroism.
It's interesting. This is a very chicken and egg thing, I guess. Because I think that I believe the main reason this is the way that it is because it was easy to reuse a lot of assets from Link's Awakening. Now, why did Link's Awakening get remade in the chibi style? This sort of claymation, chibi, semi-related to the 8-bit pixelation, but also like kind of Playmobil style. I don't know why that got chosen for Link's Awakening. I can think of a lot of reasons. I suspect it has to do just more with the Japanese cultural love of cuteness.
Well, could I ask you a question about what you think about polygonal sort of like objectivity? I wonder how much polygonal evolution is a result of Final Fantasy VII, which became the standard bearer, so frequently being the thing that people compare to. The characters in Final Fantasy VII sort of look like what if Legos were drawn by people in the dark. And I think that oftentimes Mii's look like they borrow heavily from the very Lego Technic vibe of the Final Fantasy VII characters.
Well, I thought we were all fans of polygamy.
Keep in mind
I think
that
banner down. I have a joke. You know, you gotta know that by now.
Zelda got there first with Ocarina of Time, which had equally horrifying, terrible polygon style that I hated and nearly made me give up on this franchise and Nintendo as a company.
Listen, the guy who basically was like, listen, you gotta get fit, was like, but you also gotta play Ocarina of Time or I won't love you. And so I learned to play Ocarina of Time on the
He just
3DS.
wanted you to be a square, 2 triangle. Yeah. I don't know. This is not the Mii's. Like they had some stuff that was Mii skinned Zelda stuff. And because this is up right now, I do just want to kind of point to this for a minute. This game really did learn a lot from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like we have side quests here. That's not super. There was from Link's Awakening, there was a trade sequence, but
would you do me a favor? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you
please.
mind describing a little bit of the timeline of the games of the Zelda franchise? And I don't need you to get Pocket Mobile deep, but I think many times people take for granted that there are 4 current Zelda timelines, right?
And
yeah, there's 3 very solid confirmed by Nintendo. Well, very solid. There's 3 confirmed timelines, and then whatever is happening with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom appears to be separate from that. So that would be so that would be a 4th. We don't know where Echoes fits in. What do you got, Kevin?
Endlessly fingering.
What I'm trying to cut in with is, please, by all means, go through all the history you want, but let's also make sure to direct our viewers to the Tears of the Kingdom plus Legend of Zelda history broadcast that we did last summer.
Yeah.
Because we are so excited to be continuing to cover our gaming content. There's also a lot of other links in our description and our chat to our other
links.
Stuff. And I had such a fun time on that broadcast, and I specifically vividly remember talking to you about how fascinated I was by all of the Zelda lore that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, I want people to check that out, and I want people to listen to you now. I want you to take all the time that you want on our channel to tell us all about Zelda, please.
I certainly will. I'm not going to take too much time this time around. It's very simple to say that anytime Nintendo releases a system, there's going to be a Zelda game for it. From the Nintendo onwards, it's Link to the Past of the Super Nintendo, it's Ocarina of Time, and then Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64, Wind Waker for the GameCube, Skyward Sword for the Wii, and Twilight Princess, which is it was built for the GameCube originally, but then went to the Wii. Similarly, Breath of the Wild was made for the Wii U, but then was really released for the Switch with the Wii U as well. So there's always a Zelda game. As far as the timeline goes, it centers around Ocarina of Time, in which from the ways that game can go and from the fact that there is time travel involved, there is the suggestion of 3 different timelines. child timeline, the adult timeline, and the timeline where Link dies. All of the games go forth from there, except for when we get to Breath of the Wild, which appears by Nintendo's own estimation to just exist separately outside the 3 timelines. And from there, we don't really know what Echoes is doing. We don't know where it is on the timeline, if it's in the past or future of the Breath of the Wild timeline. We just don't know. I guess we'll find out later. But I mean, for me, ultimately, the timeline stuff is very difficult to actually reconcile, and Nintendo doesn't really seem super interested in doing anything with it. So at the end of the day, I have always liked the idea that every Legend of Zelda is exactly that. It is a Legend of Zelda. It is a retelling of the myth, and that there is really no timeline. These are all just these are video game mythologies. But somebody says there's a timeline, and so every once in a while we have to reckon with that.
I remember you even saying that, and I did really love that, the idea that they're all sort of myth and that none of them is necessarily the real one.
Yeah.
People are obstinate.
Yeah, everybody wants a timeline, and it could exist. It's just, it has never seemed like Nintendo. Everybody wants Nintendo, specifically the people that own the property, to say this is official, and they have never really seemed to super want to do that.
And I think part of that has to do with why, like, Mariah Carey doesn't say, "Oh, my highest note is this pitch and my lowest note is this pitch." It's why, President Barack Obama doesn't say, "I'm really good at March Madness, but I'm secretly really bad at picking fantasy baseball teams." Like, we sort of let people who are disarmingly amazing at what they do be so good at it. And there's a lot of ways in which Nintendo, across the board, sidesteps the willingness to discuss timelines, whether it's Mario, whether it's Link, whether it's Metroid, whether it's Pokemon. There is an avoidance of dealing with the reality of what is the timeline in that universe. And so when we're talking about a product like Zelda, and we're talking about the many timelines of Zelda, one of the things that I think is actually a benefit is that it's called the Legend of Zelda. It's not called the "This is the Facts of Zelda" newscast. It is meant to be folklore. It is meant to be engageable. And one of the things that video games give us that TV doesn't, well, most TV, we as three, we as three happen and cool daddy men. Hey, what's up? We all really appreciate webisodes. We all really appreciate bonus content. And so if you watch a TV show that happens to have webisodes, that happens to have bonus content, deleted scenes, etc., you can engage with that deeper level. But one of the things that's so cool about games like Zelda, especially as you've described it, as non-platformer JRPG iterative ideas for the Americanized audience, is Zelda has a unique opportunity to give you a unique version of the story every time you play it. So 10 people could play it and get 10 different versions, but it's not because of side quests. It's because of what you take from it at that same time. And so one of the things that makes Zelda worthy of comparing to Mickey, or I guess Link, moreover, but like Zelda as a property as worth comparing to the Mickeyverse as a property, is that what you take from these characters is unique. I know that my version of the princess is like Yuna, but my version of Zelda is Sheik. So I don't know that I think of Gunner Yuna as more important than Summoner Yuna, though I certainly do identify with Sheik far more than I identify with Zelda. And it makes me question how this universe has gotten this far without that guidepost, without that singular lantern bringing us through one timeline when Marvel says the idea of two timelines makes them absolutely shit the bed. So
yeah, I mean, I think what's really surprising is that they have gone to say that there are timelines. I think it would make a lot more sense if they'd never gotten embroiled in that. And that's, you know, the timeline discussion is a crazy one, and that will never really make sense. And this game, I think, helps to maybe move us away from having to worry about that as much, because that seems to be a big project of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and now this, like those games, is doing a lot of referencing to the world of The Legend of Zelda without referencing events so much, or trying to situate itself along a series of events. Breath of the Wild really spent so much time, and then Tears of the Kingdom rehashing like every Zelda event, so that you would be like, I have no idea where this is all. It's all in this game. Look at Zelda asleep there. It's okay. This is, I have to say, like, among the many ideas that are clearly at play with Echoes of Wisdom, coziness and like rest and slumber and chillness and a lack of stress are very clearly a huge part of it. And I think that sort of feeds into not worrying so much about the timeline. This game isn't here to dramatically change your thoughts on the world and universe of Legend of Zelda. It's really more here to make you comfortable and cozy in that world. And to that end, yeah, I will say this is one of the easiest Zelda games I've ever played. I am a bit of a himbo when it comes to video game puzzles. A lot of things where just like people that I listen, I think I'm a very smart person. People that I think are not smarter than me in day-to-day life will just make me feel like the world's biggest idiot when it comes to video game puzzles that I just absolutely do not get. Could not see the thing. I had so much trouble with the Myst games, which are some of my favorites, but God, did I send away from and use that guidebook because I just wasn't getting all the puzzles. I haven't missed a single puzzle in this game yet, and I think it is both a mix of because I've played every Zelda game ever, but also because they're not meant to be that hard. It's not meant to be crazy challenging. It really is meant to make you think outside of the box a little bit and to not think in standard Zelda tropes. This game really, the fact that Zelda starts, so as you can see in every photo, she's carrying this rod and she's got this bro with her that is not one of the fairies from previous Zelda games. So the little creature is called Tri, Tri. And I mean, I feel like we're probably looking at a Triforce metaphor later on here, but it produces the rod, which then allows Zelda to summon echoes, and echoes are just disposable versions of any character or object you might find. You find various characters and objects in the game that you can copy and then recreate with your wand. And for the first large chunk of the game, that's all you do is you just, you defeat creatures by summoning other creatures to fight on your behalf. And Zelda never fights. As the game progresses, you actually do get the ability to fight in a limited capacity, which is awesome and really fun because it does sort of always make sure that you are hearkening back to the traditions of a Zelda game, which are hack and slash with your sword. But that ability to hack and slash is limited. It's based on sort of energy that you acquire that runs out. And so a lot of times you then do have to go back to summoning other creatures to fight for you, summoning objects to possibly throw or to be environmental deterrents to enemies. So this really becomes a puzzle solver of at a bunch of different levels, and puzzle solving has always been a part of the Zelda formula, so it feels really familiar, but it's so important the way that this game will often say to you, you cannot slash your way out of this, even though slashing is the only way to get out of it. So you have to figure out how to slash without slashing. And sure, it gives you all the tools, but like you have to train. If you're somebody like me, you have to train your silly Zelda brain, which says run up to every moblin and like hammer down A until you have cut it and it's dead. You've really got to start hammering Y and summoning another moblin to fight the moblin.
That was how I felt about Captain Toad. I felt like you had to learn how to play Mario all over again.
Yeah.
One of the things of Mario is we all know that wang, jump noise.
Yeah.
What if you take jumping out of the game?
Yep.
And Captain
all
Toad,
of the environments in Captain Toad are completely recognizable, all of the enemies, but you don't come at them the same way that you used to. And like, yeah, it is really similar in that way where like everything you see is recognizable. And again, even this map is exactly the Link to the Past map, but it is so much more detailed and so much more inhabitable.
one of the things that I often think is an element of a Zelda game that I kind of didn't get from this, that very little bit I played, and I did not play that much, but I kind of felt like there wasn't an intimacy in this game. And one of the things that Zelda offers oftentimes is a very personal experience to engage with the idea of the main character, how you do things, the order you do things. And I felt like there were a lot of parts of this game that were trying to give us that very straightforward first-person experience we now expect from an RPG that maybe early Zelda didn't have, but by the time we got to Twilight Princess, I felt was like definitive of the series.
It is more present as you progress. I'm not sure how far you didn't get, but this game expands and expands as you move through it, and kind of like Big Bang style, like it in bursts. Like you kind of think that you've hit, no, this is going to be basically the gameplay loop for the rest of it, and then it kind of expands out even more. There is not necessarily the same character engagement at all times, although there is a surprising amount. It really does hearken to Link to the Past and Link's Awakening in how you interact with the villagers and various other characters in the game. And like I said, it also has these elements of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in that there are side quests and main quests, and they're on the map. You know, you get the same little indicators, like the blue flashing circle to point to side quests. The side quests are always really simple. It is basically like, go fight this creature, get an echo of it, and show that echo to this villager. That is basically like 5 out of 6 side quests in a given area. Or it'll be find this object and bring it back. Where in Tears of the Kingdom, it was like a complicated series of trade sequences. You would have to identify a villager. You'd have to like get somebody from one place to another. This one is a lot more simple. Similarly, the cooking element, which was a huge thing that people loved about Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess, where you could take up to 5 ingredients, make a camp stove anywhere and cook them and create various potions. Here it is smoothies, and they're 2 ingredients, and you can't just make them anywhere you want. You have to go to a Deku who owns a smoothie shop, who owns various smoothie shops throughout the map. So when you get to a place in the map that has a smoothie shop, you go to this Deku and give him, you can select from 2 different ingredients and make a smoothie.
Sounds like a real decoupage.
This is the guy. And he challenges you to make 10 different smoothies first, and then 20 different smoothies. And of course you can make bad smoothies by combining 2 ingredients that don't work together. So it is, the cooking element was much more complicated, and you could make a larger variety of things, and the combinations were really crazy. Here it is very simple. It is just 2 ingredients, and that's kind of the perfect example for how this game is like a little bit simpler, a little bit cozier, a little bit lower stress than a Tears of the Kingdom or a Breath of the Wild, but still trying to take all of the lessons of a game like that where people wanted more than just, I want to go from this temple to this temple, solve the puzzles of the dungeon, fight the boss at the end, and then repeat. This is giving you the best of both worlds. I think at maybe a slightly more simplified level than I would like, but a still really enjoyable one.
I think part of what we're reaching with Zelda and Link, by your description, is we're reaching a world where we're seeing iterative versions recycle in unique ways, because you keep comparing this to one particular game from...
I've been comparing it to like 4 games.
What about A Link to the Past?
Link to the Past, yes. Link to the Past is from the Super Nintendo, 1992, basically, 91, 92.
Okay, good. My guess was 93. So,
No.
You know, one of the things I think that's so important is when you're talking about things like modern legends and things like Zelda and Link, we're talking about characters that have to exist in multiple modalities. And I feel like part of what makes this game unique and at the same time familiar is that it's willing to delve into a place that is part of a subsect of fandom. Like, this isn't your Twilight Princess crowd, but there is a market for it. And I actually wonder how much this market exists as a result of the success of Animal Crossing during the COVID era, which would have kind of been the right time for this to go into pre-production. And so as I'm looking at this, as I played it a little bit, one of the things that really struck me was, so Jack Schaefer was talking about Agatha All Along like a week ago and said, yes, it is the cheapest Disney Plus MCU show ever, and that is on purpose. We just said, what if we made the best looking, cheapest show ever? And sometimes to make the best looking, cheapest show ever, you have to do 17 minutes of scenes in generally a weird, stumpy forest. And sometimes to do the best looking, kind of like polygonal, chibi character style Switch game you can do, you have to sort of go back to the elements of the series that aren't the blockbuster elements. But, you know, TK, as somebody who's played, I would believe, everything that isn't on the Philips CD of Link at this point, I would assume you have the authority to speak pretty readily on how this measures up in terms of the gameplay. As a Zelda, at least aficionado and a person who assimilates your emotional experience with Zelda and Link's, how do you feel about the actual game that you've had for a week now?
I first want to address the slander that was just thrown my way, saying,
"Oh God, you don't actually know."
I have played the Philips games. Listen, I'm a completist. I'm not, but I wanted to. I wanted to at least try them out. Okay, so I have played every Zelda game, I think. Really every Zelda game. I do think I can speak with that authority. This is such a tough one to evaluate because I know, I want to believe more than anything. I know it's possible, but I want to believe it's happening. That there is a 6-year-old girl, or, you know, not even a girl, a 6-year-old of any sort that is playing this game right now, having the experience that 6-year-old me had playing Link to the Past for the first time, where I just became Link and I fully inhabited this world and I became so obsessed with it. The reason I said girl is because Zelda is the protagonist here, and I want there to be somebody who loves that specific. I want to believe that.
I only want to say that, like, Link themself for this one moment, you know, is a trans icon the same way Samus is. Yeah. I know a lot of women who are like, oh no, I'm Link. I'm not Zelda.
Yeah.
And I truly validate your expression of a young girl playing this, because girls are gamers, and let's never ever erase them. Girls, thems, absolutely all of it.
Anybody, and I just, the idea that it's Zelda here, that might mean something to somebody, and I do really, I think it is important to note that, like, for a lot of us, we made characters that weren't canonically gay in our heads, or gay based on what was on screen. Similarly, there were women who saw young Link and thought, like, I don't need him to be a girl. That's still me. I'm still in that. So all that totally valid, but I am stoked that it is Zelda who is the protagonist here. And I really hope that means something to a 6-year-old who will probably be able to do all the puzzles in this game. And that's really, like, and that's the thing, is like, I got through most of Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past at age 6, without really, like, I mean, it was challenging. I remember being challenged, but again, I was 6. And now that I'm going to be 40 in a few months, there so far have not been a wild ton of challenges in this game, or anything where I've just been like stumped, where there's still a few puzzles from Breath of the Wild that I had trouble with. There's still a few from Tears of the Kingdom that I had trouble with. So I think that's something worth, I gotta stop watching this, because I'm seeing things that I have been puzzling over that it's spoiling me on.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the trailer.
No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault at all. It's more just like, again, like I'm a little bit of an idiot. So, you know, for all I'm saying that I can solve all the puzzles, I'm seeing puzzles here that I have not solved. It's not that I hadn't solved them. It's that I thought I would get the thing that I would need later in the game and return to that puzzle. And I'm seeing now I could have solved it right where I was. So anyway, you know, clearly there is still some challenge there, even for a brilliant genius like me. It's not all for 6-year-old babies. As you mentioned, the music here is so exciting because it is so different. It is, in this case, Hajime Wakai, who is the music director, who has worked on Zelda games before, and has an impressive Zelda catalog, but has not been music director before. He's been sound supervisor and sound director, and has composed music for other games, but unfortunately I don't know quite what the structure is with Nintendo when it comes to each of their directors and who does what. But I will say that the soundtrack for this game, the score for this game, is notably unique. And while you can hear distinct elements of the Zelda catalog, there are also a lot of places where you would think, for instance, this theme that Nico has covered here, the standard overworld map theme of a lot of Legend of Zelda games, is wildly different in Echoes of Wisdom. The Kakariko Village theme, there are points where you actually do hear a little bit the standard theme, the da 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 da. It's kind of buried in there, but so much else is happening, and there are just so many places where the music is referential to The Legend of Zelda, but it's entirely its own, and it's taking risks and it's doing things differently. At the end of the day, I want to say I give this game an A-, and that's, one of those A- where, like, there's so much stuff that is A+, and there are a few things that are, like, somewhere in the C+ to B+ range that make it not, like, perfect all the time, but there is so much A for effort, so much A for risk taking, so much A for outside the box thinking, for the promise of the Zelda of the future. It's
attitudes that are not AAA.
What's that?
Attitudes that are certainly not AAA these days.
Yes. Yep.
Kevo, one of the things that I'm really excited to get your take on as we sort of wrap this episode up is, we talked about how Epic Mickey exists in a world map that matches the Walt Disney World and essentially Disneyland world map. In talking about the Zelda and also Link world map, we're essentially discussing a Japanese iteration of the kind of Western hero's journey. One of the things that I think that Zelda has done very well is played into the American experience and the expectation that many Western audiences have of what a hero will go through. There is a female character for the male protagonist, though, of course, in a very Japanese and modern and progressive way. They are both very, very attractively non-binary, in a way that I think supports the canon. How do you feel about the state of video games as somebody who is always on the forefront of evolving media with a strong basis in things like the hero's journey, but then even a strong basis in the incredibly unique, like Disney park structure? Listening to the two of us be dopes about how much we love this stuff so much for 2 hours, how does it feel as somebody who cares so much about the future of our media?
Well, I love listening to two dopes talk. I'm excited for us to get to watch you two dopes and Jonah and anyone else of our friends who wants to come join us to game and play and expand our gaming narrative. But as someone who just loves media, you really love seeing when something that is such a major franchise as either of these properties is really given the attention that they deserve for how long-lived they are, how many people have worked on them over the years, how many people have loved them, and like you said, I'm someone who loves world building, and the attention to detail on these things, and consistently and still to this day, is really remarkable. And I'm excited for us to potentially cover more of this in the future. Or else whatever games come next.
It is that exact thinking that is why this channel is going to be covering more gaming going forward. And to be honest, like we were talking on Wednesday about, we have favorite like comic podcasters, and so like that's why we can't wait to have Chad on, because he's a series favorite. But there are very few people that I think it's like an honor to just like sit and watch game, and the guy in the middle might not think he's the world's greatest gamer, but it makes me really happy to watch him game. It brings me a lot of joy. And so it would bring me a lot of joy if this channel started covering gaming a little bit more, to not just spotlight the gentleman in the middle, but to spotlight an overall love of gaming worlds, and for me, a love of gaming systems. I'm a guy who thinks that the best part of every single game is the leveling up and battle system comparison.
Either way, we are only 2 months away from regular game streams.
Oh, because Rivals
is out December 6th.
Ooh.
So no matter what, once Rivals comes out, you will be seeing much more regular game streams from me anyway. But of course, everybody else is
me
invited
as well,
and welcome.
I have the world's worst FOMO, and so I will not be a part of something on this channel.
Yeah. But we're gonna have fun with that. I mean, Rivals is gonna be great. It's gonna be a whole new era. But in the meantime, my hope is that we're gonna have a lot more other little things. A big one that I would love to play on the channel a bunch when it comes out, because this will be hugely embarrassing for me, as I have come to discover from the demo alone, but really on theme, and I've talked about it's ilk enough. The kind of soul sister sequel to Crypt of the Necrodancer, Rift of the Necrodancer, is coming out, and it is a Guitar Hero style tap-em rhythm game. I'm really hoping
I'm so good at those.
Well, this might be the one for you, because I'm not, and I found it really difficult. I'm really hoping they're gonna do a specialty controller for it, because it's 3-button, but it's keyboard. Like it right now it's keyboard based, so it's just up, down, or left, right, up are your three keys. And I'm just really hoping that they're going to do a specialty keyboard for it because I think it would be really cool. But yeah, Rift of the Necrodancer is coming out again, another Danny Baranowski soundtrack, so I'm super excited about that. I think it could be a ton of fun to play on the channel. There's a couple other games, but like I said, I think this is one of the last big Switch games we're going to be talking about, which is insane.
Well, it's the way that, like, we were talking earlier about covering the League of Legends animated series. We're talking about the fact that there was once upon a time an era where Nintendo had the complete dominance of the discussion of video game properties. And we are so looking forward to Sonic 3. It is unimaginable. Like, I mean, it is Hamilton Act 2, the unimaginable.
Yes, we covered Sonic earlier this season. I liked it. I was just moving along. I'm sorry.
I hated it, but in a loving way.
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
No, I love you. We covered Sonic earlier this season in April when we covered Knuckles. And again, much like I mentioned with Zelda, we did a bit of a 101. Nico did an extensive and wonderful history. But if we want to do more and keep talking more about the history of Sonic, I think it'd be great if we did another one before the movie comes out and really think about how they connect. So yeah, I am totally down. Even as the non-gamer, I'm really excited to support because I love the culture. I just, don't have the patience.
That's actually like one of the things that makes it so difficult. A couple of hours ago, series regular and maybe smartest, cutest engineer boy ever, Jojo, mentioned that he loves Cuphead, but he loves Cuphead without playing it because that is not where his brain is at. And you can love things without having to, especially when it's video games and the idea of sitting in for it is 40 hours. You can watch the 6 hours of cutscenes and 5 minutes of gameplay and know everything you really need to know to engage with fandom.
Speaking of that, and also something else that was just mentioned, I'm putting it out there to the group right now because it seems to be getting some traction on the internet, and I love Rouge the Bat. I think we all need to begin, as of today, watching Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings.
Oh no, I can't imagine
whatever will Nico do.
I can't imagine watching an animated Sonic show when I
so episode 2 just came out, and again, I'm just seeing some really good Rouge the Bat action fighting sequences. So we've got 2 episodes, and then let's meet on Discord and discuss when we're going to add that coverage to the board. Because
adding furry coverage, got it.
Yeah. That's and that's all I have to say for the rest of the night.
All right.
Nice.
Well, that sounds like a wrap up to me. Kevo, you have produced the hell out of this episode. I mean, really, truly, your gross national product is gross. So I want to thank you so much for producing an episode that falls a little bit out of the scope of your expertise, but certainly not out of the scope of your interests or your ability to engage. So thank you so much for giving so much on a topic that is certainly not where your fingers click-clack.
No, I appreciate that acknowledgement. I love what we do. I love our channel. And one of the things I love so much about what we do is the diversity of our content, where you guys have covered Doctor Who for me, which I know isn't necessarily as much in everyone's wheelhouse. We've been doing Star Trek, so hopefully we'll get on some coverage for Lower Decks later in the month or early next month. We cover so many things, and everyone, so many people in our family are so excited about gaming, and I just want to love and support all of y'all. And so happy to be of service.
You make us feel like the 2 best produced gentlemen on the entire internet saying silly, silly things. So, Kevo, until other people on the internet need you to make their silly things sound terrific, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me on the socials at Kevorely. That's Kevoreally. Don't forget to check the comments, check the description, follow back to our channel to see all of the amazing content that we've got. Because like I said, there's a ton and it covers a lot of different stuff. So if you're watching this, there's probably something for you.
We are as multifaceted as a diamond and absolutely as precious. But speaking of people who shine, sir, I see you over there in your exquisite Zelda cap. It is very demure of you to not bring up how absolutely flossy you look over there. But kimono, Zelda cap, fabulous video game. It sounds like you are just living the life. So, TK, what was your favorite thing you discovered about Epic Mickey, and where can everybody find you?
It was. Sorry, I thought I was muted. It was your paintbrush Wiimote. Come on, don't fuck around. Give it to me. I'm really curious to know if they had an insert for a Joy-Con. If there was like a special package that had any Joy-Con insert.
There was a Joy-Con. It came with a squishy.
Ooh, love it. Anyway, yeah. I love an accessory. I love a product. Yeah. And if you want to share your love of Echoes of Wisdom or tell me something I don't know about Epic Mickey, find me at TK Elemental. Nico, what's something that you loved and learned about Echoes of Wisdom?
I actually feel like I learned something a little bit bigger picture. One of the things that I didn't realize about Echoes of Wisdom, although I guess this is also certainly a true thing about Echoes, is that I didn't realize how much it had so many beautiful callbacks to other elements of the series. I assumed that it maybe stuck to one or two games and really drew elements from there, the way perhaps Fede Alvarez really picked from 2 Alien movies more than anything and had like little bits of other things for Romulus. I thought perhaps that was the same thing here, but to hear you say that Echoes of Wisdom echoes the wisdom of so many Zelda games that came before really inspires me to get a little bit further into it and to enjoy the game a little bit more beyond just the adorable. And evidently, if you try hard enough, you can break the game right after the first cutscene. So I will try hard not to snip too hard. I just saw, speaking of evil, but in that scene, not that good in the movie. The rest of the movie's better. James McAvoy hulking at you is like, it's even better in the theater. No shit. Really, what a big man. Impressed. But I'm really impressed by how much this game pulled from so much of Zelda excellence. Oh, nope, I did not manage to mute, and I thought I did, but that's so horrifying. Life over. But anyway, I'm Nico Action, Nicoaction, Nico Action Music, Nicoaction, If you want to check out more about this incredible show, that is X's for Show. If you want to find out more about us on audio format only, that's X's for Podcast and HTML, Husbands Talking More or Less. Don't forget to look us up on YouTube and Google and more. A couple of other things you guys can do for us: like, comment, and subscribe on any format you guys like, in part because, algorithms. Yikes. But there's 3 things you guys could do for us that would mean the world. And that is, number 1, we would like you guys to stay safe. It's a crazy, spooky world out there. And as we move closer to Halloween, spirits, or whatever. But number 2, we'd like to see you be brave. Not just because staying safe is important, but because being brave means you get to show who you are. And speaking of showing who you are, number 3, we want to see you guys evolve daily. Because who you were yesterday, we love it. Who you are today, amazing. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream. And just like a game like Epic Mickey has the opportunity to get rebrushed 15 years later, or Zelda and Link get the opportunity to be reimagined later on down the line, that's sort of like, I think, what we're all hoping for you guys. We want to see you guys get the best re-release as you guys can get. And I wish I had said re-release you guys like possible. I really fumbled that. Anyway, I'm going to stop fumbling the burl. You're all amazing. Can't wait to see you next time. Stay safe, be brave, evolve daily, echo your wisdom, epic your Mickey. And if you're like the guy down below us, produce the show, and we'll see you.
Oh.